4 surgeons were taking a coffee break and were discussing their work. The first said, "I think accountants are the easiest to operate on. You open them up and everything inside is numbered." The second said, "I think librarians are the easiest to operate on. You open them up and everything inside is in alphabetical order." The third said, "I like to operate on electricians. You open them up and everything inside is color-coded." The fourth surgeon said, "I like technicians. They always understand when you have a few parts left over at the end."
There are 2 identical twin brothers that live together. One happens to be a well-respected dentist, and the other can't seem to keep a job. Instead of actively looking for work, he likes to sit around at home. One Saturday, the dentist is hungry and puts his brother on the spot. He tells him to get off his lazy behind and go get them some food. After some protest, the lazy brother takes the car and leaves for the store. In the meantime, the dentist takes a nap on his day off. He turns off his phone so he won't be interrupted. About 30 minutes later, the lazy brother gets into a head-on collision in the intersection by the grocery store. His vital signs are fading, he's unconscious and barely moving. An ambulance picks him up and rushes him to the hospital. He ends up in the emergency room under observation, but his condition is critical. They try calling his dentist brother, but he doesn't pick up because his phone is off. The dentist wakes to a knock on the door. Suspecting a solicitor, he ignores it, but the knocking continues. Eventually, he resolves to get up and yell at the person at the door. When he does, he reveals the Grim Reaper. He is just as he appears in movies, a full skeleton underneath a tattered cloak. The Grim Reaper swears. "Oh no. This always happens with identical twins." "What do you mean?" asks the dentist. "Well, if you must know, your brother was in a critical car accident, and I've come to take him to the underworld. I'm afraid his time on Earth has ended. I'll take my leave now." The dentist is noticeably upset. He says, "Wait. Isn't there some way I can challenge you for my brother's life? After all, you made the mistake. Certainly there must be a way I can bargain for his life." The Grim Reaper asks, "What do you have in mind?" The dentist thinks. "How about a challenge? If I beat you, you let my brother go free." The Grim Reaper laughs. "I will beat you in any challenge." "What challenge do you propose?" The dentist smiles. "I propose we see who has the cleanest teeth. 5 minutes of brushing each, then we decide." "Very well," says the Grim Reaper, who makes his way to the bathroom. Once there, he pulls back his tattered cloak to reveal his skull. It's glistening. He takes a toothbrush from the bathroom, loads it with toothpaste, and brushes. After 5 minutes, the shiniest teeth anyone has ever seen glisten and make the room bright. The Grim Reaper grins. "You are foolish human. But, you are entitled to your chance." The dentist takes another toothbrush, loads it with toothpaste, and starts brushing like a madman. When his 5 minutes are up, he spits out the paste. He smiles. It's unbelievable. The shine from the dentist's teeth is so beautiful that he can see the Grim Reaper's reflection in his perfectly clean teeth. The winner is obvious. The Grim Reaper hangs his head in shame. "You win, human. This time, your brother will live." He disappears in a puff of smoke. At the same instant, the bedridden brother wakes up in the hospital. Not only is he uninjured, he seems perfectly healthy. Suddenly, the phone by his bed rings. It's his brother, the dentist. He picks up. "Hey, bro. You'll never believe what happened. Apparently, I went out to the market and got hit by a car. They say I almost died." The dentist smiles on the phone and says, "That's interesting, bro. Today you might say that I also had a brush with death."
There once were twin boys, aged 6, that had developed extreme personalities. One was a pessimist, and the other a total optimist. Concerned, their parents took them to a psychiatrist. First, the psychiatrist treated the pessimist. Trying to brighten his outlook, the psychiatrist took him to a room filled with toys. But instead of yelping with delight, the little boy burst into tears. "What's the matter?" the psychiatrist asked. "Don't you want to play with any of the toys?" "Yes," the little boy bawled. "But if I did, I'd only break them." Next, the psychiatrist treated the optimist. Trying to dampen his outlook, the psychiatrist took him to a room piled to the ceiling with horse manure. But instead of wrinkling his nose in disgust, the optimist climbed to the top of the pile, and began gleefully digging out scoop after scoop with his bare hands. "What are you doing?" the baffled psychiatrist asked. The little boy replied, "With all this manure, there must be a pony in here somewhere." There was once a very prim and proper older lady who had a problem with passing gas. Since she came from a generation when people didn't even talk about this kind of problem, it took a long time for her to seek help. Finally, however, she was persuaded to consult her family doctor. After she filled out all the proper forms and had waited about 20 minutes in the waiting room, the doctor called her into her office, leaned back in her chair, folded her hands into a steeple and asked her how she could help. "Doctor," she said, "I have a very bad gas problem. Yesterday afternoon I had lunch with the Secretary of State and his wife and had 6 silent gas emissions. Last night I had dinner with the governor and his wife and had 4 silent gas emissions. Then, while sitting in your waiting room, I had 5 silent gas emissions. Doctor, you've got to help me. What can we do?" "Well, Margaret," said the doctor, raising her voice, "I think the first thing we're going to do is to give you a hearing test."
An old woman took her husband to the doctor. The doctor checked the husband's pulse, then told the woman, "I'm sorry, your husband is dead." The woman was shocked. "I don't believe it." "Are you sure?" "I want to be absolutely sure. Are there any other tests you can do?" The doctor responded, "I'm quite sure, but if you'd like, we do have some alternative tests that we can perform." "Yes. I have to be absolutely certain." The doctor shrugged, sat down on a stool, and yelled out the door, "Send in Mrs. Fluffkins." In walked a black house cat. The cat jumped onto the examination table, walking carelessly on the unresponsive body of the woman's husband. The cat swatted at the man's face a few times, then jumped off the table, meowed twice, and walked out of the room. "Just as I thought," said the doctor. "Dead. Send in Walter." In walked a Labrador retriever. The dog walked over to the woman's husband, smelled his hand which was dangling from the table. The dog turned to the doctor, his big expressive eyes raised up to meet the doctor's gaze. Then the dog shook his head and walked out of the room. "Just as I thought," said the doctor. "Dead. Send in Colin." Suddenly a towering Aussie in safari gear burst into the room. A pair of binoculars hung from a strap around his neck. He pulled them up to his eyes, looked at the husband for a second, then turned to the old woman and yelled, "OYBI****HYA husbands foo ***IN dead," and walked out of the room. "Thank you, Colin," said the doctor, making a note on his clipboard, then yelled down the hall, "Ma'am, can you come in here?" An elderly woman walked slowly into the room, peered through her thick glasses at the body of the husband on the exam table, shook her head, then sat down at a typewriter in the corner, clacked away at the keys for a few seconds. Ding! She pulled a card out of the typewriter and handed it to the doctor. The doctor looked at the card, dead. "Thank you, ma'am, that'll be all." The doctor suddenly hopped up from his stool. He picked the stool up by the legs and swung it over his head, crashing the seat down on the body of the husband. The husband's lifeless body flailed under the impact, then settled back to rest on the table. The doctor set the stool down, then jotted something on his clipboard. I'm sorry to inform you that your husband is definitely dead. He handed her a piece of paper detailing the test results. Take this to the front desk and they'll check you out. The old woman took the slip of paper to the front desk. The receptionist looked it over and giving the old woman a sad look said, I'm sorry for your loss. That will be $32,000. $32,000? That can't possibly be right, I've never paid that much to see the doctor. The receptionist looked over the paper again, well it's $100 copay for the doctor's visit, but then it shows you also requested a CAT scan, a lab report, a colonoscopy, a mammogram, and a stool analysis. One night a man and a woman are both at a bar knocking back a few beers. They start talking and come to realize that they're both doctors. After about an hour, the man says to the woman, hey. How about if we sleep together tonight? No strings attached. It'll just be one night of fun. The woman doctor agrees to it. So they go back to her place and he goes in the bedroom. She goes in the bathroom and starts scrubbing up like she's about to go into the operating room. She scrubs for a good 10 minutes. Finally she goes in the bedroom and they have intercourse for an hour or so. Afterwards, the man says to the woman, you're a surgeon, aren't you? Yeah. How did you know? The man says, I could tell by the way you scrubbed up before we started. Oh, that makes sense, says the woman. You're an anesthesiologist, aren't you? Yeah, says the man, a bit surprised. How did you know? Because I didn't feel a thing.
A man came to see his family doctor. The man told his doctor that he wasn't able to do all the things around the house that he used to do. When the examination was complete, he said, Now doc, I can take it. Tell me in plain English what is wrong with me. Well, in plain English, the doctor replied, you're just lazy. Okay, said the man. Now give me the medical terms so I can tell my wife.
An elderly gentleman had serious hearing problems for a number of years. He went to the doctor and the doctor was able to have him fitted for a set of hearing aids that allowed the gentleman to hear 100%. The elderly gentleman went back in a month to the doctor and the doctor said, your hearing is perfect. Your family must be really pleased that you can hear again. The gentleman replied, oh, I haven't told my family yet. I just sit around and listen to their conversations. And do you know what? What? Asked the doctor. I've changed my will 3 times.
Morris, an 82-year-old man, went to the doctor to get a physical. A few days later, the doctor saw Morris walking down the street with a gorgeous young woman on his arm. A couple of days later, the doctor spoke to Morris and said, Hey Morris, saw you the other day. You seem to be doing great. Morris replied, Just doing what you said, document, get a hot mama and be cheerful. The doctor sighed. I didn't say that, Morris. I said, you've got a heart murmur, be careful.
A patient who needs a heart transplant suddenly gets a phone call from his surgeon. You are in luck, we have 2 matching donors. A 20-year-old athlete and an 80-year-old lawyer, which heart do you want? The patient answers, give me the lawyer's heart. Are you sure? Asks the surgeon in surprise. Yeah, I'd rather have one that hasn't been used.
2 men are in a lunatic asylum and one night, they decide they don't like living in an asylum anymore. They decide they're going to escape. They get up onto the roof, and there, just across this narrow gap, they see the rooftops of the town, stretching away in the moonlight to freedom. The first man jumps right across with no problem. But his friend didn't dare make the leap, afraid of falling. So then, the first man has an idea. He says, Hey, I have my flashlight with me. I'll shine it across the gap between the buildings. You can walk along the beam and join me. The second man immediately spots the problem with this, and shakes his head. What do you think I am? Crazy? You'd turn it off when I was halfway across.
3 doctors with a growing private practice decided they needed to hire a new nurse onto their staff to meet their needs. They hired a very qualified applicant named Beth, and met after a week to discuss the new nurse's abilities in her new role. She does a really good job with the patients, but I'm concerned Beth is mixing things up a bit. I told her that her shift was from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and she showed up at 5 a.m. the next day," said the first doctor. The second doctor chimed in, "I have had some similar issues. I told Beth to tell the patient they needed to take 1 antibiotic every 6 hours, and she told them they needed to take 6 every 1 hour." The third doctor looked shocked. "I have had no issues so far." The 3 heard a blood-curdling scream from the next room over. "Oh," said the third doctor, "I see what you mean. I just asked Beth to prick the boil on the patient in the next room." Alright, that's all folks. Hope you laughed your socks off today. If you did, smash that subscribe button like it owes you money. It's the only way to get more jokes, more laughs, plus, it helps me keep the lights on and the servers humming. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe and let's get this party rolling again. Bonus. Want to see me tackle your weirdest prompts? Leave a comment below and I might just turn it into my next video. And remember, sharing is caring. Spread the joy, share the jokes, and let's make the world a funnier place, one laugh at a time.